Hi, thank you for attending tonight's webinar on international scholarships. I'm Olivia Snow, the new event moderator for Global Campus. Tonight we have Sarah Ann Hones, the Director of Distinguished Scholarships Program here at WSU, and she'll be taking us through some of the details and deadlines associated with applying for a scholarship. If you have any technical difficulties, make sure to type them into the chat box, and also if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat box at any time. And I'm going to pass it on to Sarah now.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Ann Hones. I'm the Director of Distinguished Scholarships, and I'm here today to talk to you about distinguished scholarships. So the first thing I want to do is give you a definition. When we're talking about distinguished scholarships, we are referring to scholarships that are nationally competitive. So you're competing with students from most of the schools in the United States. And I'm very excited to talk to you about these opportunities, and I really want you to be thinking about which ones are going to fit your needs as we go through. Olivia, can we see the first slide? At this point, I'm going to try to tempt you a little bit. So I have slides of some of our recent winners. This is Scott Shigioka, and Scott is one of 4 students in the United States who won the Fulbright MTV Award this year. Now you hear MTV in there, so obviously it has something to do with media. Scott was an undergraduate in journalism. He's now a graduate. And while he's not in school at the moment, he was interested in going to Iceland to help coordinate eco concerts. So not only is he enjoying Iceland, but you can see on the right-hand side, that's his poster for one of his concerts. And I've suggested I might not need to go and check it out, but we'll see. Can we have the next slide, please? This is Anna. Anna is one of our recipients of the Boren Scholarship. It's an undergraduate award that she received, and she received $20,000 to study for a year in China, and she studied Mandarin. And I think this was her spare time in the Gobi Desert. And can we have the next slide, please? This is Tom Taylor, and Tom is a global undergraduate student, and he is in Taiwan right now. He's also a recipient of the Boren Scholarship, so he received $20,000 for a year of study in Mandarin. The interesting thing that Tom did is he finished all his undergraduate program, and in his senior year he applied for the Boren. Well, he found out in about April that he had received it, so he postponed his graduation for a year and is taking a year of study in Mandarin in Taiwan, and he'll return this spring to graduate. We have the next slide, please. Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about what goes into applying for a scholarship. It definitely is a process, but before we do that, probably the most common thing I hear is that I don't have time for this. So right away, I've got a test for you. So would you take out a piece of paper and a pencil? It's a little bit of a math test, but it's not impossible, and I'll tell you the answers. The first thing I'd like you to do, at the top of the page, would you write the number 168, 168? And I'm sure some of you have figured out that that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let's see how you're spending your time. The first thing I can tell you is statistics tell me that you do one thing least well as a college student. Statistics say that you don't get enough sleep. So right off the bat, I'd like you to subtract some time for sleep. So would you subtract 56 hours from 168? That way I know you're getting 8 hours a night times 7 days a week. And if you're not, don't tell me. Next, so you should be at a 112. Next, we want to consider how many classes you're taking. if you're taking one 3-credit class, professors ask that for every hour that you're participating in class, you have at least 2 hours outside for study. So consider how many hours or credits of class you're taking, times 3. So if you're doing 15 credits, it would be 45 hours. If you're doing 16 credits, it would only be 18 hours. Subtract that number and see where you end up. I'm going to give you some numbers also. I'm going to say you can have 12 hours a week for showering and eating. I'm going to give you another, let's say 5 hours a week for exercise, or in my case, reading books. And then if you have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a significant other, I want you to consider them at least a 3-credit class. Subtract off 10 hours for them. You may need more time there. If you are working, subtract off the number of hours you work in a week. What else? There's a national statistic that says, on average, Americans are spending up to 7 hours a day attached to some form of media. Now, I don't know if yours is 7 hours. I'm afraid mine might be. I was talking to a freshman the other day, and he said, there's no way I spend that much time on a computer or on TV. I mean, all I do is text. Texting counts. I think I'll stop there and have you look at how many hours you have left. And if you're a normal person, you probably have almost no hours, or you may have gone into negative hours at this time. Most of us are very busy. So why do I have you do this? I want you to be thinking about how busy you are and not say, put this aside, but consider where in that time you can make room for scholarships. And one way I have people think about scholarships is think about what it would mean if you were working full-time for that money. And usually we can't make that amount of money in the jobs we can get. So could we go to the next slide, please? This is my scholars progression. And the reason I want to show it to you at this point is I know you have a lot of competing things that you need to manage in your life. But these are some of the things I want you to consider as you're planning for your education. And so it is a scholars progression, so it's not just to get scholarships, but things you should be thinking about as you go after degree. The 4 major things that I've identified are effort, engagement, leadership, and initiative. And under each of those areas, I've kind of spelled out some of the ways you might consider those activities. One thing I've noticed, though, is a lot of people say, I go to school and I work. I don't have time for anything else. That's absolutely fine because you want to consider the work you do as part of this progression. And I want to give you an example that we just found out about last week. We have our first ever, WSU's first ever winner of the Udall Scholarship. I'll talk to you more about the scholarship later, but I will tell you our first winner is a single mom in her 30s who has returned to school, and the Udall Scholarship is a $5,000 scholarship that will help support her as she works on her education as a nurse practitioner. So the work she's been doing with her community is part of what has gone into making her a scholar. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what can my office do for you? Here's a list of things, but the major thing I want you to know is my office is a resource for you. I tell freshmen you have to think of your resources at WSU in the same way you think of Safeway. You would go to Safeway and buy groceries, and you would never leave your groceries at Safeway. Why not? Because you paid for them. This is going to seem so obvious now. You come to WSU, and you pay tuition and fees for the services that are offered and the resources. So you do not want to leave those behind. You want to use each one of them. And one of them, of course, is my office. Can we go to the next slide, please? I want to encourage you to visit our webpage. And in fact, I want to encourage you to go to the webpage now. And I believe Olivia is going to put it in the chat box so that you can go and look at it while I'm talking about scholarship. Thank you. And can we go to the next page? What I've done is I've taken a screenshot of our website. If you go on to distinguishedscholarships.wsu.edu, and on the left-hand side, hit Explore Awards, you will get this page. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is explore them while I'm talking about some of them. If you put your arrow on any of the awards, they will take you down to the next page and explain them. And I'm going to start with the Boren Award right at the top. The reason is this is an award you want to consider. The Boren Award is a language award. It's funded by the Department of Defense. I think it's always important to know who's funding things because it helps you get a clear understanding of why. The Department of Defense feels that we do a kind of pitiful job in the United States teaching languages, and I agree. And so they're willing to fund students to go to other countries, to a language school, to learn another language. What do they fund and what don't they fund? They typically do not fund Western European countries. Why? Those are typically languages we can get in our schools here. They fund what they call the critical languages. And if you look on the Boren website, you'll see there's hundreds of them. Where we've had tremendous success is in Mandarin. For a really good reason. We have a strong Mandarin program here. And I showed you in the two pictures, two of our folks pictured had one for Mandarin. The scholarship is for up to a year, and it is for up to $20,000. So a very big scholarship. It typically will fund most of what you're doing, including your travel, your expenses at the school, and your living expenses. If you're in countries that are extremely expensive, like China, you may need to get other scholarships to manage that load. Well, I said it was Department of Defense. They actually want something in return. They ask in return that for a year after you've finished whatever degree you plan to finish on, so it might be undergraduate, it might actually be graduate, within 3 years, that you work for the government for 1 year. But you choose the job, and they pay you. And I'll give you an example of someone who graduated last year. She did a Boren Award as a sophomore. And when she graduated, she said, I'm going to take care of that service requirement right away. And so I asked her what job had she chosen. Her background was math and Mandarin. She chose to work for the Navy in the Mojave Desert. And it turns out what the Navy does in the Mojave Desert is blow things up. She says it's fun. So that's a little bit about the Boren Award. The deadline for the Boren Award on campus, or sending it into campus, is December 1st. The next award I want to tell you about is the Fulbright Award. The Fulbright is one that you can apply for as a senior, so the year you plan to graduate, or any time thereafter for the rest of your life. It has two different directions. One is an English teaching assistantship. The other is a research award, which might be doing your own research in another country, or it might be completing a master's in another country. I mentioned Scott's Special in TV Award. Well, these are another form of Fulbright Award, and they give out about $1,700 a year. We've been very successful at them. In fact, we found out last week we have one winner so far this year. He's planning to go do his research in Thailand. The next award I want to talk about is the Gilman. The Gilman is an appropriate award for anyone who receives the Pell Grant. It's the one award on my list that does require some financial aid, and that is that you get the Pell Grant. If you do get the Pell Grant, however, I'm going to say, I don't know why you wouldn't apply for this award. It's the opportunity to receive funding to do a study abroad. And I will tell you that in fall we had 6 applicants, and among those 6 applicants we won 4 awards. So really good outcomes. They say the average number of winners is 1 in 5 students. And the average amount of award is about $4,000. So a really excellent opportunity to do a study abroad. The next award I'm going to go to is the Truman. The Truman is an award that you can apply for as a sophomore or junior. Typically we have people apply as juniors. It is a public service award. It's for people who are interested in political science, being part of public service, perhaps as an elected official, or doing something in public service. It's a really astonishing award. It's to complete a degree after your first degree, and it's for up to $30,000. It does take a tremendous amount of work, so if it's something you think, I'd like to try that, that's something we should talk about relatively quickly, because it takes quite a bit of work to put one of those together, but it's definitely worth it. I mentioned earlier that we have our first Udall Award winner on campus this year, and she happens to be someone on the Pullman campus. The Udall is established by the brothers Udall, Mo and Stuart Udall. They were senators, and one was very interested in environmental studies, and the other was interested in tribal public policy and in tribal health care. So you can see that award goes in 2 very distinct directions. Typically they give about 50 awards each year. It's a $5,000 award, and the winners go and meet together in the Southwest in early fall. Our winner this year plans on being a nurse practitioner in her home community, which is on a tribal reservation, and she was one of 5 people in the country to win the healthcare award. So I'm going to pause for a minute before we go on and check with Olivia and see if we have any questions.
Nope, not too many questions.
Okay, then I will go on. We're seeing if there's another award I want to address specifically. As I say, I'm hoping you're looking at these awards as we talk about them, and if you have any questions, you can always reach me at Distinguished Scholarships at wsu.edu. Can we go to the next page, please? And there is the website again. So if you thought I won't look, now I'm going to encourage you to look again. What kinds of things do I work with people? I said I meet with people to talk about specific scholarships, but I also work with people in deciding what is the best fit in terms of a scholarship. So for example, often people will send me their resume and say, I'm really interested in such and such a thing. Can you suggest scholarships? And I'll give you an example. Last year, my office is in the Writing Center here on the Pullman campus. A student from the Writing Center came in and said, I'm not really interested in any of the awards on your website. I'm interested in going to law school, but I can't afford it. And she brought in a scholarship she'd found. And we worked on that together because it was the best fit for her. And as a result, she did win the scholarship. It was a leadership award, the Thomas More Scholarship. And she is funded, her tuition is funded for 3 years at Gonzaga Law School. So we're not limited to just the awards on the site. And what I like to see when I meet with people, either I can meet by phone, in person, or by Skype, I like to see a resume. So I get an idea of what you've done and what you're planning on doing.
Hey, Sarah, we have a question.
Yes.
Deborah asks, if you're interested in the Gilman Award, does that only apply for particular majors?
No, it's for people who have a Pell Grant. So if you look on your financial aid sheet and you receive the Pell Grant, you are eligible to apply. The interesting thing about Gilman is you can apply every term. So you could apply next fall for either spring or summer. In the spring, you can apply for summer or fall, and it keeps rotating all year. So I told you we did have winters in fall. We're waiting to see if we have winters in spring. And so obviously, you have a little bit longer time abroad if you're going in fall or winter. But we do have at least one student that I know who applied in fall who's planning to go in summer. He's planning on taking his family, and the reason he's choosing to go in summer is he is a STEM student, science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's a little bit difficult for him to take a long period of time during the year. So he's more available in summer, so that's what he's going to do. South Korea. Other questions?
Yeah, Deborah has another question. Does the study abroad have to be through WSU?
Deborah, that's a good question, and I don't believe so. What I'm going to do is refer you to somebody. I work with the folks in global studies, and the person I'm going to suggest you email is Kajsa, spelled K-A-J-S-A. Her last name is Hendrickson, H-E-N-D-R-I-C-K-S-O-N. Kajsa is one of the advisors, and we do workshops every term on Gilman. So I recommend that you email her and talk about the different kinds of programs you're looking for. The things that are required for the Gilman, they require an essay, a personal essay, which is a little more challenging than it sounds. And I'll tell you, one of the things I'm more than willing to do is give you my opinion about essays. I'm ruthless. They also ask for an essay about what you're planning to do. And they ask you to consider that when you get back, within 6 months, they would like you to do an activity about Gilman to spread the word about Gilman. So we've had students go back to their high schools. We've had students do an activity for the church groups. It's very open to what that activity can be, but the goal is to spread the word about this great opportunity for scholarship. The other things they ask for, they do ask that you have talked to someone in the international office, so that's going to be Kajsa or one of her peers, and they do ask that you have financial aid sign off on it, and that's all done through Kais's office also. So it's a relatively easy application process, and as I say, it comes up every term, so it's more knowing when the deadlines are, and the deadlines are listed on the Gilman website, and you can get to that from my website. That's all linked in. And then getting started, you know, and I tell people in general, when you're writing an essay, just put something on paper, because I guarantee you will never send your first essay, or you shouldn't. So usually you will edit it some, and so don't be afraid of putting pen to paper, because it will always be edited. Other questions, Olivia?
Nope, we're good to go.
Okay. So I will think of questions for you. One that I would like to ask is when these things are due. Each of the scholarships has a little bit of a different deadline. The deadlines are noted on my website, but you really want to pay attention to the website in terms of our internal deadlines. I'll give you some examples. The Boren internal deadline for WSU is December 1st. Why is it before it's due nationally? Because I am required to put together a review committee on campus to meet with the students. Well, since you know that we've had global campus students, you know the students aren't always here, so it's arranging a Skype interview or something like that. So we need a little extra time, and in the middle of it is that long break. So definitely look at when the deadlines are, or if you're not sure, ask me, so that we make sure that you don't miss deadlines. So I'll ask myself another question. Who should apply? I would say, think about what scholarships fit you best. A lot of the scholarships I've mentioned, and I'll give you some examples, Boren, Fulbright, Gilman, are not looking for 4-point students. If you happen to have a 4-point, that's lovely, but that's not what they're looking for. Boren is looking for language learners. Fulbright is looking for cultural ambassadors. Read, nice people. Gilman is looking for people who have not had an opportunity to travel very much, and for people who have a Pell Grant. So as you can see, each scholarship has a little bit different thinking, and so it's important to know what each is looking for, or if you can't figure that out, to let me help you find a scholarship that's the best fit for you. Can we go to the next slide? And how to do that? Oh, important to-dos. Definitely check out the website. I've tried to put everything on there that I can think of. But if you come up with questions, that's when let me help you. Develop an all-purpose resume. And what do I mean by this? I think everyone should have a resume that sits on their desktop. And every time they accomplish something or earn something, it should go on that resume. And so this is the most common question I ask freshmen out of high school, or freshmen coming out of high school. What should stay on your resume from high school? If you've been out of high school less than 5 years, I want you to include high school and all your accomplishments there on your resume. If you've been out longer than that and you have a good work record, start taking those high school things off and including your work record. But I would say include scholarships and awards, because remember, that's the field we're looking for, and that's what they're going to be looking for. Now, obviously, anytime you apply for a job, you're not going to just pull the resume up and turn it in. You're going to edit it. So that all-purpose resume just acts as a catch-all to have all your important information. And I'm going to say it again. If you've earned it, you have the right to put it on there. I'm going to encourage you to write down questions about the scholarships that interest you. You can email me and set up a phone appointment or a Skype appointment, or we can work by email. Any of those things is fine by me. I would say probably 75% of my work is done by email, so I'm completely open to that. And can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, and Deborah also has another question. She missed the first few minutes of the lecture. She's wondering if she's wanting to study abroad to improve my skills in a foreign language. Would that be the Boren Scholarship?
It's a great opportunity, but I will repeat about Boren again. The Boren Scholarship is for the non-Western European languages. So if you're thinking about studying Spanish, French, Italian, German, those probably are a typical study abroad like a Gilman or other things. And I don't want to say these are the only awards, because if you go to the Study Abroad website, you're going to see a whole list of awards they have for studying abroad. So don't feel that you're limited to just the ones I've talked about. Other concerns?
Nope, you answered her question.
Okay. On this slide, I have both the website and my email, and I am very good about email. As I say, I spend most of my time on email, so typically I can get back to you within 24 hours. And so I encourage you to explore the website, think of questions you'd like to know, and ask me. And I think we have one more slide. And this is the slide from Global Connections. One thing I'm going to encourage you to do, and this is a hard one, please fill out your survey at the end, because it's how they know what programming works for you. And I would encourage you to contact me. Remember, think of me as Safeway. I am available, and you have paid for this resource, so I hope you'll consider that as you do it. And Olivia, last questions or comments?
No, any, also, I just missed this. You mentioned helping with essays. Would you also be open to helping with a resume?
Absolutely. I warn everybody about essays and resumes. I'm ruthless, even my mother says so. So I'm more than willing to be honest with you. On the other hand, I'm not grading you. So I usually say, consider what I have to say, and you make the decision about what you go with.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, for presenting, and thank you all for attending. Make sure to take the survey. It's in the chat box. I posted the link. Here's also our website. I'm typing it in right now. Go and take our poll for the summer photo contest, and that'd be really helpful. And then there's also more events coming up that you can sign up for and register. Thank you.